Good morning, everybody. Sorry about all the inconvenience. These things happen when you want to try and get things organized, but we're happy that you're all here today. And a big welcome to Claremont Church here. And we're very happy to have Dr. Partington, who comes from Johannesburg up north, and who's been in practice for many years as a qualified and registered homeopath and natural healer. And he will give us much information. So I hope you all brought pens and paper to write notes. But the program is being live streamed as well. So you can go back and watch it if you missed something else. And you can also share it with your friends and pass on the health message to them as well. Shall we bow our heads before we start? Dear Father in heaven, we thank you that you brought us all here together today to learn about our health and how we can use simple methods to heal our bodies. We thank you that you have brought, we have the opportunity to have Dr. Partington with all his experience here today to give us much knowledge and help and motivate us to change our lifestyles so that we can be healthier, that we can be there for other people and our family and friends, and that we have a purpose in life, and that we can grow old gracefully and not with chronic illness. We thank you for this, and we ask that your Holy Spirit is with us here today, for we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, over to Dr. Partington, who will then tell us a bit about himself as well. Thank you, Dr. Partington.
Do you think they can square that? Good morning. We have been welcomed. So as we say, we're sorry about the delay. Right. So there's much information to share. I like detail and sometimes get carried away with all the information, but we will try and simplify it and make it a little easier for us to understand what we're talking about. And we were asked also to look at the overview, a quick overview of the history of diseases way back in time. And from there, we will go on to the second presentation, which deals with our world, a vast hospital. People are sick and tired of being sick. I think that's basically the underlying message. So it's our understanding that from the genealogical research done by our Bishop Usher way back in the 16th century, and he calculated that the earth was created and established in the year 4004 before Christ. Of course, there are those on the left-hand side of the screen that looks at evolutionary development, billions and billions of years. I'm not sure how they get to 1 or 2 or 3 billion, but anyway. So 4004 when the earth was created and established. And from a biblical point of view, we're looking at Adam and Eve, Garden of Eden. And this was their food given to them by God himself. Fruits, grains, nuts, and seeds. I prefer to be very basic and very singular in my thinking in this, that if we stick with those foods, we will all be healthy. That's as simple as that. I'll show you as we go along. But things have changed. And, sin, from a Christian's point of view, we become to realize that sin entered. And this lady, Eve, she overstepped the line gradually. She moved away from her husband. She went onto forbidden ground near the tree of life. She looked, she desired, she took, and then she went to her husband and said, take. He had to make a quick decision. The decision was, if he doesn't take, he's going to lose his wife. That's reasonable, logical, I think. If he does take, he keeps his wife. So the question is, what was Eve's sin, a transgression, and what was Adam's sin, transgression? And there we are. So as far as Eve and Adam's concerned, Eve, appetite, I think she wanted to taste. That's interesting. And then as far as Adam's concerned, passion. Passion is your desires. I want, your yearnings, your likes and your dislikes. That's passion. And friends, basically from a biblical point of view, there are only two sins in the world. And the one is appetite, and we'll talk about that. And the other one is passion, your desires. Your doings against what you know you should not be doing, but you're overwhelmed by, I want. And that's your desire. That's your passion. And if you look at Genesis 3:15, once again from a biblical point of view, God said, I'll put enmity between you, Eve, and your offspring, and Satan and his children. And that's how it started. And exactly 4,000 years later, we find this interesting picture that the creator of the universe, because of what man and woman had done, came and offered us forgiveness and offered us eternal life. Because that's what life's about. Every morning when I wake up, I thank God for two things. Oh, I'm alive. Things could have happened last night. And secondly, I've got a measure of health given by God to me. But the thing is, God has given us health, and we need to look after our health. That is our responsibility. And then comes Genesis 3:18. God knew that sin was going to enter. And then comes this verse 3:18. And God introduces vegetables. There were no vegetables in the Garden of Eden itself. That was only introduced in sometime later, after the sin entered. Genesis 3:18. And that's what God gave them. And what is interesting today from a scientific point of view, nutritional point of view, we realize that there are 30,000 medicines, healing agents in these foods that God gave us. Fruits, grains, nuts, seeds, and then comes the vegetables. So here we are. And what we also learned from history and written documents that was looked at, that Adam and Eve, they were, Adam, the gentlemen, were 5 meters in height. So it's way up there. It's way up there. That was their height. And Eve was about 4 meters at his shoulder level. And secondly, they basically followed a plant-based diet. And then we realized too, also from the history, biblical history given to us, they averaged 912 years, their longevity. Today, if you're born in South Africa, you're happy to reach 60 and 65 and 70. Barely would you go over 100. But here they are, 912 years. And you also realize, once again, from the biblical point of view, that from creation to the flood was 1,650 years. And what were people doing during this time? Things went seriously wrong. And we read from the book of Genesis, verses 7:5, 7:11, Genesis 6. Wickedness increased, corruption, violence, etc. And then look at the picture on the right-hand side. It's very sad. That door closed, the door of probation closed, and they could not enter. And of course, you know what the end of them were. And we read in Genesis 6:5, and God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And then on the right, we read, the earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. So what is violence? I think we've learned over the years, especially the last 30, 40 years, violence is something very, very serious. So what made them so evil and filled the earth with violence close to 4,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago? So what is violence? Well, if you look at the psychological point of view, they grade it in terms of physical violence, emotional violence, psychological, etc., etc., etc. But basically, we're talking here about physical violence. And so what was the cause of physical violence? And that's a key question to ask. Now, there's something interesting. You go into the next few chapters, Genesis 9, and I read it to you. It states that God placed the fear and dread of humans upon all animals, etc., that move on the ground and fish, and delivered them into human hands. So there became a separation between what God created Adam and Eve, the human descendants, and of course animals. And there was a friction between them, and they distrusted one another. And they began killing one another, as we find today as well. So, appetite ruled the antediluvians, those that died before the flood. The inhabitants of the antediluvian world were intemperate in eating and drinking. They would have flesh, meats, although God had at that time given man no permission to eat animal foods. Kill them and eat it. So the question is, were the creation of Adam and Eve and their descendants, were they to be herbivores, plant-based users? And the answer is yes. But things went wrong, especially on the animal world as well. They started killing one another. So the picture there is what we saw today, 6,000 years later. Now, three times there were three references, Genesis 1, 2, and 3. The Lord was grieved that he had made man on the earth, and his heart was filled with pain. So God is filled with pain and sorry that he had actually created on this planet mankind. Now, pity you can't see that well, but group 1, group 2, and group 3, those are the three groups of foods. Foods, grains, nuts, seeds, and so on. And then God introduced the vegetables, and then came group 4. And man began killing animals, and animals were killing men and eating flesh foods. Now that happened. So man's diet moved from one section, plant-based, onto animal-based. And what happens? Well, let's look at the results. So, do you think the use of flesh foods has got anything to do with the killing of animals? Killing of girls, the wives, children these days. It wasn't so long ago, last year, or I think earlier this year, where the president of this country, Cyril Ramaphosa, had invited people to join them, and they had a very special meeting, a convention. And in his opening address, he actually also mentioned this, that South Africa is a country with it's the number 1 most violent country in terms of gender-based violence. Number 1. 15 women are killed every single day in our country, linked to this phenomenon. You read it in the newspapers, it's there. So, over the last 2, 3, 4 years, the president of this country had endeavored to try and find a way of minimizing or curtailing the events of daily killing of women and children, etc. And he appealed to those in attendance at the convention that there should be some help. We are the number 1 country in terms of gender-based violence. Now, I get very curious, and I wanted to find out, is there any proof for this really, linked to the use of flesh foods? And then this came across. And it was looking at the meat consumption of the African continent, all the countries. And South Africa is number one in terms of consuming so many, and that figure there should be more than 14 kilograms per capita per year from what we're eating, flesh foods. Now, that is interesting. So, once again, we read that. And then comes the next era, and that is the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah. And once again, Ezekiel talks about this, the Old Testament. 16 verse 49, now this was the sin of your sister, Sodom. She and her daughters were arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy. And then the people of Sodom were also guilty of sexual immorality, including homosexuality. Right, I know what that is. And they excavated some of the times way back, archaeological excavations. And it's very clear as to what took place. This is a very sad picture. And whilst this was happening, they were overtaken by extinction of fire. And then we come to the next era, and Israel in Egypt. And then God called Moses and said, please go and bring my children out of Egypt, because they are being flooded with wrong lifestyles. And then there comes this little text in Exodus 15:26. It says, and God said, if you diligently heed the voice of the Lord your God and do what is right in his sight, give ear to his commandments and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases on you that I brought upon the Egyptians. It's interesting. Which diseases? Now, the archaeological scientists went up Egypt and exhumed some of these mummies, did autopsies and scans and x-rays on them. And then they came to the conclusion and identified the type of diseases of which the Egyptians during those years died. Heart disease, obesity, cancer, tooth decay, stress, and even smallpox were picked up at the time in these mummies. They could take it out from them, identify what was the cause of the death. And what is interesting, friends, is that was 1440 before Christ. And looking at 2026, it's exactly the same diseases as what we find in our world today. So that proves that there's a development of wrong eating habits, and that was the result. Now, and then in Egypt, out of Egypt, God spoke to his people and gave them manna, food that came down from heaven, and they were supposed to eat it. It was like a grain type, but it is a taste very, very mild in terms of sweetness and so on, but they didn't like it. This is now Israel out of Egypt on the way to the promised land. All right. So, and then comes the reaction from them. And it says, and the children of Israel said unto them, would to God we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots. And we are sick and tired of eating this food. God, please give us the food that we want, flesh foods, which we had in Egypt. Now, I'm not sure whether you realize, in the southwestern parts of Angola, now Friday was just past, last week we had Wednesday. Every Wednesday and every Friday, manna falls from heaven. And one of the pastors of one of the churches went there, wanted to check on this, and he did. And he collected the manna and he ate it, and it's just as the Bible described. That was interesting. So God is actually reminding us very discreetly. That's what God wants us to do, to eat the food that he had prescribed for us. Very interesting. And then King David, in the book of Psalms, picks up on this, of what took place in Egypt. He reminds the people at that time what took place some years ago. And you read in Psalm 78, it's very interesting. And verse 11, and they'd forgot his works and his wonders. And as God led them out through the Red Sea and water coming out of the rocks, they've forgotten it. He goes on to the next verse, verse 18. And they tempted God in their heart by asking meat for their lust. Next one. There are quite a few texts. They scoffed and mocked God about him. Can't even prepare a meal for them on table in the wilderness. He's incapable of doing that. But they wanted fresh foods. We're coming on to the book of Daniel. 4 young boys in exile in a strange country, taken to be trained by Nebuchadnezzar as young people in his country. And the question is, we're asking ourselves, to what do we contribute the steadfast life of Daniel and his 3 friends? Meshach, Abednego, etc. And in 605 before Christ, King Nebuchadnezzar had built a statue, and they were asked to bow down and worship this image, this statue of the different elements. They wouldn't, and then they said to King Nebuchadnezzar, you can do what you like, you can burn us, you can kill us, we will not worship you. And we know the story of Daniel as well. The question we're asking ourselves is, why were they so? It says to us, and Daniel purposed in his heart that you would not part of the king's food. All right? To what do we describe that loyalty to God? Interesting. Mummies, there are some mothers over here. What are we teaching our children? And right from the knees of his mother, they were taught what God expected of them, and they followed it. He purposed in his heart, he was loyal. We move on to the next eras, Dark Ages, 400 and 800 after Christ. After Christ. And medicine was practiced only in convents and monasteries. That's where you got sick, that's where you went. You went to the church. Then comes the mummies that had to deliver little ones, and they had to make sure, it says here, physicians in the Middle Ages believed that most humans' illnesses were the results of excess fluid in the body. So they removed the blood, they would remove the poisons and the disease. That's what they believed. And then we're coming on to the next stage, of course, that is surgery. Maybe an appendix has to be removed, or a tumor, and there were no anesthetics at that point in time, and they had to do it cold turkey, so to say. And they went through terrible pains. We're looking at the next level, and this is the mummies that has to deliver. Childbirth in the Middle Ages was considered so deadly that the church told the pregnant women to prepare their shrouds and confess their sins just in case they died. It was very dangerous to deliver the little ones. Yeah. And then we're coming on to the next stage, and that was the epidemics. Bubonic plague, the worst that probably ever hit this country, this world. Smallpox all the way down to TB. Of course, TB is the #1 killer in South Africa. I'm not sure whether you know that. Right. And then we're looking at van Leeuwenberg invented the microscope, and Louis Pasteur looked under the microscope and he saw little things moving in them, the microorganisms, which killed a lot of people. And then anesthetic was discovered, and they could use anesthetics in the operations. And then came penicillins, etc., etc., and then the Spanish flu and all the other flus, Asian flu, 70,000 deaths in America, and then the Hong Kong flu, 750,000 died globally, and 500,000 people in terms of the swine flu, and of course then came HIV and AIDS, and 40 million people died because of that. And today in KZN, you still find that the number one spot on our map, that's where most people die of HIV and AIDS. We're coming on to the explosion, 20th, 21st knowledge explosion. And asking the question is the following. There is a healthcare crisis. Our world is sick, very, very sick. And why should sickness be a problem when we know more about how the human body works than ever before, and we're more sick? Is there no way that they can help us? And this goes on. Medical and scientific research, and amidst all of this, we have become more sick. Now, the Bloomberg Healthiest Country Index released this report in 2019, and they looked at 169 countries to find out which of the 169 countries is the healthiest, if I can use that word, or the non-sickest country. And they realized and came to find out that Singapore was the number one country, the healthiest country on the planet. America is number 35. And this is what they looked at. They looked at the life expectancy, longevity, how long you could live, blood pressure, blood glucose, sugar, and diabetes, different types of diabetes, obesity, depression, happiness, alcohol use, and also the amount of money the government spends of that country in trying to keep people healthy. Now, what did they find? They also included South Africa in this exercise. And this was their result. Where do you think South Africa ranked health-wise out of the 169 countries tested? It was released in 2019, this information. Beloved, out of the 169 countries, South Africa ranked the unhealthiest. We are sick, very sick. You can ask me, we're in contact with us all the time. And from our side, little endeavors, with many others, of course, to try and provide information, scientifically based information, that can make us more healthy. Now, this year, the World Health Organization will release, and of course, let's say last year, 2025, have released information of the number of deaths per annum, all deaths. And about this year, about 2025, of course, 65 million people will die worldwide. It's like wiping out South African population in 1 year. That's how much. So, of the, let's say, 65 million people that died in 2024, 70% died because of what they were eating and drinking. And this figure is increasing. It used to be down to 40%, 50%, but it's increasing every single year. And I would imagine that this will go up to about 72, 73% in 2026. People are dying because of what they're eating and drinking. That's it. All right. It's called autoimmune diseases. Now, an autoimmune disease can best be explained by that little picture. you're killing yourself. You are responsible for your death. Not the government, not the doctor, but you are. I am responsible. If I don't look after myself, I don't think anybody else will. But the doctors are desperately trying to help. I'll come on to that a little later on. So there are more than 100 of these chronic diseases of lifestyle. A wrong lifestyle, and over time it develops depending on the type of exposure you were given. And then finally, you'll end up somewhere. Now, there's just a little explanation: cancer, diabetes, blood pressures, sexually transmitted diseases, etc., etc., etc. Little list, but there are more than 100 of these diseases. Now, turn the picture a bit and looking at 80% of the world's population would need a hospital sometime or other. 80%. 80% of us would be landing up in hospital sometime or another. It's a given figure. It's true. And then they start looking at calling it some of the world's best hospitals. Now, here is another hospital in America. And the top 10 hospitals in the world. There's a bit of a contradiction here. We want to be healthy. We don't want to go to the best hospital. We just want to be healthy. So now they're competing with one another, all the hospitals. Friends, somebody, and this publication was released in 2000, the Journal American Medical Association. And this physician went to the hospitals in America, a sample survey, and daycare hospitals and clinics to look at what people were dying of. And they looked at the reports at that hospital, signed by the doctors, death, this, death, that. And then they realized, this was in the year 2000, that 250,000 people died in these hospitals, these best hospitals. 250,000 died in these best hospitals due to the doctors' prescriptions in those hospitals, the drugs that were prescribed. All right. That's very sad. And this figure has gone up to about 240, 250,000 every year. Doctors' errors in prescribing the drugs. Now, we know these days that common lifestyle, women are dying of diabetes, obesity, and heart problems. And the gentlemen of heart diseases, diabetes, depression, etc., etc. Depression. 17 million people in South Africa are suffering from depression. 17 million. It's a third of the country, of this country's population. Right, so just one example. You're eating the wrong foods. Your cholesterol levels are increasing. And the blood can't flow freely through your vessels. The blood can't get to the brain, stroke or cancers. The blood can't get to the heart sufficiently, heart disease, heart attacks. The blood can't get down over here. Diseases associated with that. And so, yeah, if you've got high cholesterol, for example, and you go to the doctor, he's going to prescribe Zocor. It's a serum cholesterol reducer. It's a Schedule 4 drug. It's a powerful drug. And then with prescribing this comes all these side effects. And here there are a whole list of them. There are 41 side effects. So you're going there to, and you're going there to, where am I now? Right, yeah. You're going there for this treatment, and then you got going for the treatment, then you've got a pain over here and a pain over here. All the side effects. Every single drug comes with side effects. That is a given. You can't bypass that. All right. So the question is now, where do I go for help if I'm sick? 99% plus of people go to the doctor, prescribing a drug, you go to the pharmacy, and now he's going to help you. But we don't go here. We don't look at ourselves and look at the lifestyle that I'm following that's bringing on these diseases. I don't do that. Why not? So, yes, COVID-19. We've just come through the COVID-19 2022, 23, 24, and it's still carrying on. Most of us don't know what's going on. People are still dying. Why are they dying? COVID-19. COVID-19? Vaccination? Let's have a look. And then the figures were released, 2026, 7.1 million died worldwide. It's an estimate. We were not given the true figures. We were not even given the true figures for South Africa because they held back on it. And we know this, beloved. So then they thought, well, it's bats that's causing it, and it's the origins of this pandemic is the pangolins. It could be a biological warfare or a religious conspiracy. So what caused people to die of COVID-19? And then the answer came. This doctor from the Far East, April 12, 2022, he did research on the Pfizer vaccination. Did the studies at Pittsburgh University, and then the results were released. And what was inside the Pfizer vaccination that caused all these other problems? And he identified the biological source that was in the Pfizer vaccination that caused so many more deaths as well. 75% of South Africans were vaccinated with the Pfizer vaccination. 75%. And little ones too. So, and there is Dr. Bing Liu. He identified that the active ingredient in the vaccination was the venoms from the Chinese great cobra snake. That is what was in the vaccination. And there are 19 venoms in that. And depending on your biological constitution at the time that you go for the vaccination, and something goes wrong after that, any one of these 19 venoms that's within that vaccination can either attack the brain or your fertility levels or the liver or whatever it is. And that's what happens. And they've gone quiet. And so that was the Pfizer vaccine. And then they challenged the Pfizer company to court in Europe. And they appeared in court. So that was the problem. So the COVID-19 vaccine side effects. And this is interesting information. When you receive that vaccination, when you did receive it, 50% of your own immune system, your own defense system was destroyed. Then you go for the first booster, and another 25% is destroyed. You go for the second booster, and another 25% destroyed. So by the time that you've gone for the vaccination plus true boosters, your total self-defending immunity was totally destroyed. And you were totally under the control of the vaccination. It was so bad, we know this, and they challenged the CEOs of the Pfizer company to court. And 2 questions were asked. And there she is, Janine Small. Janine, 2 questions. If I receive your vaccination, will it protect me from COVID-19 virus, which they told? She said no. Will it protect me if I have this virus in me? And if I take it, will it protect me from not transmitting it to my friend? No. And they were fined $2.3 billion for misleading the public. Now, friends, this is not over. I'm not sure whether you realize in the Ukraine over the last since 2022, when it was launched in 2024. They did research in Ukraine, in the top labs, Ukraine, to have a replacement for COVID-19, replacement. They completed the study. Israel accepted it. Canada accepted it. America accepted it. And it's going to be released soon. Are you prepared to take these vaccinations? Now, there's something else. I'm not going to talk about that, and that is the memorandum of the United Nations, what they're up with. We won't have time to talk about that. But, beloved, just something quickly. This is our first presentation. Cell phones. Oh, dear. I had a cell phone over here somewhere. I don't know where I put it. Cell phones. Do you know how dangerous a cell phone is? The mysterious vision loss epidemic suddenly affecting America's seniors, because the vision-robbing radiation coming out of that cell phone causes many, many problems. And research shows that cell phones emit a certain type of low-level radiation that could be contributing to your age-related vision loss. So when we're hitting 45 and 50 and 65, we start wearing these things over here, glasses. And then somebody, one of the experts, international experts in the technological field, was giving us an idea of how dangerous the cell phones are. Now, the electric magnetic field force radiation. And in Europe, most of the places, and even in our country, I've been to many rural areas, and the mummies is walking from here to there, they go to the clinic, and where do they keep the cell phones? Over here, you know that. Yes, you know that. And especially if that... Yes. Let's look at the other area that they also use, my sister. Wow, and especially if it's wired, the transmission is increased by tenfold, becoming even more dangerous. Now, of course, Mummy is pregnant, and she's a bit tired, and she's busy with the laptop. And look where the laptop goes. Not only the cell phones. And so in America and many other places of the Northern Europe area, radiation-proof pregnant women are required to wear special shielded clothing to protect the little one in there. Come on, man. This is serious. Mobile phones and male infertility. So where do males normally wear the little cell phones at times? There. And the radiation is right here. And you know what happens over there? And they become sterile. Now they go for tests because they can't have little ones. And they've got to go through tests, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 rands to find out why you are sterile. This is not even looked at. So don't sleep with your cell phone. Switch. When you go to bed tonight, your cell phone should be in the garage, hidden away somewhere, not next to your bed. There's another presentation that deals with this. And we are ignorant, friends. So we're focusing today a little on our ignorance about what we are exposed to in this heavy world. Now, this is the top experts, international expert, telling us what scenario should exist. In plain English, if you wanted to get exposed to what's considered a safe amount of radiation, you would have to use your phone for just 6 minutes per day. I got the response. I got the response. You won't be living. Well, maybe you will be living. 6 minutes a day, hold it 1 inch away from here because radiation just hits through the skull. From your head while talking, and be at least 6'2" and weighing about 220 pounds to minimize in some way the amount of exposure that you are exposed to. Friends, look at this. And here are the outcome. The research is very, very clear. Attack on your nervous system, on your hormonal system, your stress levels. Our country, 30% are suffering from stress and depression. Attack on your genetic makeup, who you are, that changes things. Apoptosis, that's basically the ability of your own body to defend the attack on yourself. That's destroyed. And infertility itself, males and females, because of what's happening. And cancer is one of the key causes, is your cell phones. And the cancer prevalence is increasing like this worldwide, because everybody is using cell phones. So when you go home tonight in bed, the cell phone, try and keep it away from you. I wish I had more time to tell you about that. Now, the end of this little presentation. When we are born, we look like our parents. And when we die, we look like our choices. Friends, that's what we would like to share you with. And we thank God that He can help us. Now, normally when we do these type of trainings through students, universities, etc., or even churches, whatever, then we would like to interact. But we're always running out of time. So I'm not sure whether we'll have time to interact. But my friends, can we go on to presentation number 2? Where are you? Are they upstairs? So I hope they're there. Presentation number 2, please. Next one. Thank you. Because we do a lot of training. We visit universities and churches and different organizations. And we talk about these things. And when we leave today, choices has to be made. And the question is, I'm not sure whether my little, yeah, there we are. That's our little logo. So we're providing you with information. And at the end of today's exercise or presentations, this is your life. It is your health. And what we're sharing with, you can reject it or you can accept it. It's your choice. Many patients have come to us over the last number of years. And what we're going to share with you now is what we shared with some of them. And there are only 2 questions we ask. Do you really want to reverse diabetes type 2? Do you really want to reverse cancer? Doctor, well, I'll do anything. Question number 2. Now, here's the program, how you do it. And then they look at the program, we go through the program with them, and they say to me, are you saying I can't eat this and I must eat that and I must do this and I must do that? Your choice. Your choice. And my friends, that's it. I'm not here to impose anything on you. I'd just like to share information with you because I'm concerned about you and me and everybody. And what we're sharing is absolutely scientifically proven. You can reverse diabetes in 28 days if you want to follow the program. It's your choice. No matter what cancer. You say, but that's impossible. I'll show you. Let's have a look. So here we go. So we are facing this healthcare crisis. It's serious. It's very serious. And we spoke about this briefly, about the autoimmune diseases. And the diseases are caused basically by what I'm putting in here. And my stress levels. Stress is responsible for 90% of diseases. So if you're exposed to particular elements and you're stressed, you're going to die sooner. It's as simple as that. Stress. Spoke about that and spoke about this, and we shared this with you as well. And the issue of the hospitals. Now, look at this little statement over here. If you think wellness is expensive, yeah, but I've got to buy these foods now, and I haven't got money for that, then you should try illness. The choice is yours. If you think to go and make changes in your lifestyle that you can make at home, or wherever you are. Right. This is Einstein. He died in the 1950s. Probably the most brilliant scientist that ever faced or that lived on this planet. The first step to civilized society is the transition to a plant-based diet. Look at that statement. And many of the top scientists, whatever field they were in, were all plant-based users. Got a list of them as well. Attended a presentation on antidepressants because people are depressed. And then comes this statement: side effects may include suicidal thoughts. Is that what you want to tell your patient? You're sick, but now just be careful. You may kill yourself just now. What a message! Now look at this study here, my dear friends, my dear brothers and sisters. By the way, look at this statement. Dr. Campbell, Professor Campbell, and his son spent 30 years in rural China. And what they realized that those rural Chinese, the grannies and their grandpas, lived up to 110, 150, 120 years. And they wanted to find out why they just kept on living. And they spent 30 years there. And they got all the answers. And then he comes with a very, very basic statement. In short, friends, this is his conclusion. Spent 30 years there. He releases the findings on their studies. And then, in short, it is about the multiple benefits of consuming plant-based foods and the largely unappreciated health dangers of consuming animal-based foods, including all types of meats, dairy, and eggs. Look at that statement. And this went across the whole globe and given to people in these fora. But people don't make the changes. And here's the answer. They also followed up patients in those areas that left China and went to Americas, into the Western world, and all died within 5 years because they all went on to animal-based foods. Now, choice. Now, this is partly where we come in. What is a functional doctor? You're spending 6 years, 7 years training. And at the universities, I've been to Critters Hospital, I've been to Children's Hospital over here, etc., etc. And you go there and for diagnosis, and they give you the diagnosis and they give you the treatment, basically on drugs. Everyone. All right. Now, have you ever been to your family doctor with a little problem, whatever your problem is? Has he ever asked you, what are you eating? What do you drink? Do you exercise? Do you drink Amanzi water? Do you do these things? Those questions are never asked. But, so I received 60, 75 emails every single day of my life, the last number of years, from Americas and elsewhere. On research, now listen to this, on research that these top scientists are doing on Genesis 3:18, on the benefits of plants and vegetables. They're researching cucumbers. They're researching moringas. They're researching activated charcoal. They're researching all these herbal benefits. It is run into the thousands benefits in all these foods combined. And these doctors, practicing as medically trained doctors, are all switching, and they've all become functional doctors. Now, what is a functional doctor? Well, here it is. On the left, it's patient-centered. It's health-focused. It's looking at the root causes why you're sick. What are you eating? What are you drinking? There are 46 principles of health. How many of those do you keep? How are you doing? It's looking at the prevention of the disease rather than the reactive response. A drug, here's a drug for you. And more doctors are becoming, they've trained as medically trained doctors, but they're switching and they are focusing on the patient, not on something else. So are you living a healthy life? Question. Do you want to know how old you really are? My dear sister, do you want to know how old you are? Can we quickly check? Okay, we're going to check. You tell us how old you are. What is interesting? Now, what I'm going to show you now is used worldwide in little exercises in the community, wherever they are. They go there and they do these exercises, a bit of training, a bit of practicals, etc. And then the top scientists, this has been used for the last 35 years already, to try and find out basics, how old you are, how strong is your health, how protective is your health for you. Now, I want you just in your mind, let's go through this. You can see here 7 questions, 1, 2, 3 to 7. Now we're going to go through these questions. And as we go through each question, let's say number 1, do you sleep 7 to 8 hours a night? Now I know that you're all honest people. So when you say, yes, I do, then at least you're honest, hopefully. Oh, 7 to 8 hours sleep every night. That means sleep, not running up and down to a bathroom or the kitchen or whatever it is. Now, let's go through the 7. Just keep a little picture of your own little exercise. How many of these do you actually comply with? Number 1, do you sleep 7 to 8 hours every night? Yes or no? Now, let's get how many you actually do. No eating between meals. You have a good breakfast, which is your main meal, by the way, main meal. And you're only going to eat 1 or 2 little things after that through the day. No snacking. Most of us are missing breakfast because we go to bed late, we get up late, I've got to go to work, I've got to rush, I haven't got time to sit down with the family and maybe have a little morning worship and a little prayer, and there's no time for that. When I go out to eat in the morning, I see the guys in the cars eating a table. The one's nibbling this, the other one's nibbling that. They're having their breakfast in the car on their way to work. It's wrong. Now, number 2, no eating between meals. Eating breakfast regularly. Breakfast should be your main meal. Hello? By the way, you need energy for the day. You don't need energy for the night when you go to bed with a big plate of food like that. Are you with me? Thank you. Thank you. Your weight. Are you happy with your weight? We'll come on to that a little later on. Do you exercise regularly? Just by the way, exercise is 5 times a week, brisk walking, early morning, best air, best oxygen. It's negatively charged. And if you go at 10 o'clock or you go to the gymnasium, that's all poisoned by somebody else. That's true. Friends, regular exercise, no alcohol. Just by the way, we heard about fruit. Fruit's good for us, so I go and buy some fruit juice, and I put it in the fridge. It becomes a hot day, and I want to have a bit of refreshment. I take the fruit juice out of the fridge, and I pour myself a glass, and my phone goes. And so the lady runs down the kitchen, down out there, and you know the lady spends a little longer time on the cell phone. She spends 30 minutes on the cell phone, and by the time that she comes back to drinking her fruit juice, the sugar in the fruit juice has become alcohol. It changes very, very quickly. Hello? So when I say I don't take alcohol, we got to be careful. We got to be careful. No smoking. I say, well, okay, let's smoke. I either smoke or I don't smoke. Now, ladies and gentlemen, out of the 7 questions, how many do you keep? Now get your little figure. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, got it? Now we're going to check to see how old you are. This has been proven worldwide. This study, Belloc and Breslow's, the 7 health factors for longevity, for living longer than 60 or 70. Here we go. Let me explain to you. So if you are 50 years of age, sorry. Yes, my friend. You mean over here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Normally doctors tell you, brother, don't drink so much.
Yes.
Drink whiskey.
Yes.
In the evening it will help you fall asleep. Should we accept them? What's your answer?
They should fire him out of his position. My friend,
There are millions that say that.
I know. Millions could be wrong. My friend, we know alcohol is not good for us. Everybody knows that. And we've got some information coming along as we're going along through this morning and this afternoon on these things. So if you want all the information, I'll give you my email address and I will post it to you. Okay, all right. All right. Now, let's have a look at how old we are. At the back. I can't hear my friend. Sorry. I missed that. Yes. Yes. Let's come back to that. Let's look how old we are. Are you ready? Yeah. If you are, say, 50 years of age, and you're only complying with 2 out of the 7, you will add 22 years, you're actually 72 years old. If you are 40 years old, and you comply to 4 of these questions, then you will add 5 years to the 40. That's 45 years. By the way, if you are 70 years old, biological, birth, and you keep all 7, you deduct 18 years, you're actually 58. Well, I can't lie to you. I'm 84. And comply, sorry, where am I right now? Comply to those. Comply to this. Yes. So if I'm 84, I can deduct about 20. So my biological age, my true health age is now about 60, whatever it is. And friends, I exercise 5 times a week. I drink my 8 glasses of water. We'll talk about it. All those things I'm going to share with you is what I'm doing. Not me. I just thank God that can help me to do those things. I can do all things through Christ. Amen. Wow. Shocking factors that trigger chronic disease lifestyle. Okay, I've got half an hour to give you an outline of the good practice to keep us healthy. Here we go. Do you know? I need so much information. I need so much time to give you all the information. My brain is flooding with information. Now, question is, do you know what drug? We were invited by some schools and churches to go and talk to the parents, the mummies and the daddies, of their children, primary school and secondary school, that were selling drugs one to another. It's happening in our schools, friends. So I'm sitting in my study, I'm saying to myself, God, what are drugs really? And God says to me, go to the Food and Drug Association, FDA. That's the American top association, also globally. They did the research they've done globally. They submit their research papers, whether it's cancer, whether it's whatever it is, to the FDA, and then they can list it for doctors to prescribe a particular medicine. Okay, so I'll go to the FDA. And interesting. And of course, so what are drugs? People think that drugs are just these things. No, there's more than that. And so they think it's cocaine and marijuana and heroin, drugs. Of course they're drugs. But that's not only drugs. The only drugs that are listed here. So, and that's the FDA articles. There it is, you can read it. And here is the definition of drugs. Are you waiting for it? Do you not know what it is? A drug is any chemical substance other than good food and water that brings about physical, emotional, or behavioral change. And in other words, anything other than good water and good food that you're taking and drinking and eating. Other than that, anything other than that is going to bring on disease. So what is that? I'll share it with you. Friends, look at this statement. In other words, that is what we need to drink. Not coffees and teas and a bit of whiskey and a bit of this, a bit of that. No worries. And foods, whole plant-based foods, plus the other little benefits of good principles of health, exercise, etc., etc. Some of the ones we already listed over here. So, let's have a look. Quickly give you 12 habits that causes disease. Flesh foods, number 1. Now, who says flesh foods? So why not flesh foods, red meats, and processed meats? Well, from a Christian's point of view, you can go to the Bible, and this is what God tells Moses to tell Israel. They wanted flesh. And God says to Moses, now, there's another little text in the New Testament, 1 Corinthians 10:31, which says, whether therefore you eat, or whether you drink, or whatever you do, glorifying God. Glorifying God means reflect his character, reflect his image. Isn't that beautiful? I think so. Yes. So that's what God gave us. The foods. Fruits, grains, nuts, seeds, and vegetables. Okay. And then man came along and he introduced animal foods. Beef and pork and poultry and fish and cheese and milk, etc. By the way. Just by the way, cheese, milk. There's one dangerous thing in milk or cheese. There are two proteins in milk, cow's milk. Whey protein, whey, and casein. Casein is used to make cheese. And the statement we'll show you later on that casein is the #1 cause of diabetes in most people. Hello. Let's move on. So, why not animal foods? And then God says to Moses, right, it shall be a perpetual statute for your generation throughout all your doings, that ye eat neither fat nor blood. Hello. Let's come back. Leviticus 7:23. Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, ye shall eat no manner of fat of ox or sheep or goat. Interesting. They don't hear. God says to Moses, right, look at this one. Moreover, you shall eat no manner of blood, whether it be of KFC or beast, in any of your dwellings. Don't touch it. I didn't say it. There it is. Either I believe God or I don't believe it. It's as simple as that. Look at this. Now, my friends, we know that fats, you can't, if you're going to have a piece of steak, you can't remove all the fat from that piece of steak. You cannot do it. How are you going to do it? Well, then they tell us, I can do it with halal or kosher. You cannot do it. The poisons are still in the blood. If you remove the blood, it's still penetrated into the flesh itself. And the same with the fat. One cannot remove all the blood and fat with its toxins by halal and kosher. World Health Organization, not even a church organization. Here it is, World Health Organization. The consumption of processed meat causes colorectal cancer. It causes pancreatic cancer. It's the worst cancer ever to be submitted to. Pancreatic cancer. It causes all types of cancer. And the one thing is, here we are, bowel cancer in young adults. More and more young, older children are getting cancer. They're in their 15s and 16s and 17s. The way they eat doesn't take long. And they go to the doctor with little tumors all over. By the way, a mummy in Australia, a little 14-year-old girl has got big tumors like this on the brain. And the oncologist, the brain surgeon, says, we've got to cut it out. And mommy says, I will never do that for my daughter. So she starts looking around and doing her own research to find out what can remove these tumors in her daughter's brain. And she comes across a little biblical essential oil. You know, there are a number of essential oils mentioned in the Bible. And the one is called frankincense. Frankincense. And she does her own research. And she goes and she buys the frankincense from the top companies in America. Pure frankincense, not spoiled. And she takes 1 drop in the morning, 1 drop of frankincense at night. Within 2 months, the tumor's gone. Hello? I need more time to talk to you about a lot of things. Friends, come back. Friends. There's another presentation that deals purely with essential oils. There are 30 of them. It's beautiful. You must invite me, my friend. Look at this here. The World Health Organization. We are a member of the World Health Organization, South Africa. And this is released. And what do? I'm thinking of Cyril Ramaphosa. With all the problems that we have in our country, gender-based violence, tell them to stop eating these things. Put it through your program, through your health program. Something else about today, Sunday, and you've already invited some of your friends. please come along and bring in braai, bring in barbecue. We can have a little party. We can be friendly together. You bring this, you bring that. All right. Now, so you bring a piece of steak this size, they like that. And somebody else brings else. And now you are going to bring and braai. Now, if you want to know, the fat falls down here onto the coals, burning coal, and it releases a poison. It's called benzopyrene. Hello? Because everybody is bringing and braaiing and barbecuing. It's forming benzopyrene. Do you know how much benzopyrene a piece of steak this size is released? Will release. It is as if you were smoking 600 cigarettes. Hello? This was already released in 1964. Nobody talks about this. Interesting. There's something else in flesh foods. It's called arachidonic acid. Arachidonic acid causes your brain messengers to keep you healthy and thinking straight. It confuses you and you can't remember things. Flesh foods. There we are. You can look at these slides over here. What about cholesterol? Your brain makes its own cholesterol. Your body makes its own. You put your arm out in the sun for 20 minutes, nice day, and the 7-dehydrocholesterol changes into vitamin D. We're all short to vitamin D. Did you know that? We need, one thing that the government is pressing with the COVID-19 is vitamin D, vitamin D. That's all they said. All right. How do you want to know how old you are? We already spoke about that. All right. What are drugs? We spoke about this. All right. And that we touched on. Now, the shocking factors that trigger chronic disease or lifestyle. We spoke about the flesh foods. All right. Just a quick repeat over there. And we just mentioned that. All right. That we mentioned as well. Arachidonic acid. And here are the high cholesterol foods. Friends, it's mostly animal-based foods. High cholesterol. The blood can't get to your brain because it's blocked. And you're driving home from work. Suddenly you feel dizzy, you feel tired. And if you don't get to the hospital in 2 hours, gone. Heart attack here. Or stroke there. Interesting. Foods not labeled by God as foods for human consumption. These things. It blocks. Blood can't get where it should be. Now this is a post-mortem done of a man who was a strong flesh food user. And you can see the blood comes down flow here. It's got to go there and there, cross into the branches. It's got to go through these little branches over here. But it's all blocked with cholesterol. It's animal fat. That's all it is. Now, they've also did a post-mortem of a man who was a pure plant-based user. And that was his vessels. He died in an accident. Look at the difference between this and that. Friends, next one. I need to run on. Heart disease, coronary heart diseases. Even these days, in the early 10s and 20s, the little children are already coming with blocked arteries. And what is interesting, throughout your life, there's no signs and symptoms that you got a heart problem. And suddenly it happens to you, uncalled for. Unrealized. Food additives. Look at this one, your friends. I know I'm shocking you a bit, but this is it. Look at this. Food additives. Now, here we go. We all go to the Pick and Pays and the supermarkets and the Clicks and whatever. We go do our shopping. And I watch them as they shop. Big trolley. What is inside that trolley? You can imagine. What's inside the trolley? There are 230,000 food lines in the supermarkets. This is ShopRite. and every one of them contains poisons. Hello? What poisons? Let me show you. Food additives added to all these foods, food additives, is to preserve the product on the shelf for at least 2 years. It's got an expiry date on there. You know that. Okay. Antioxidants, it's to remove the poisons. Interesting. They're adding something to remove the poisons to which they've already added the poison. It's crazy. Who do they think we are? Thickening agents to make it at least tasteable, textures. Flavoring agents to make it taste nice. Sweeties. Stabilizers, coloring agents, the bright red colors, etc., etc. All right. They all come with E numbers. So you take the label, you look at the label of the package of wine, and you look under ingredients, and under ingredients, you're going to pick up these E numbers. There are 4,000 additives they're adding to your food. 4,000. Now, migraines, etc. There's a whole list of things that it causes. Okay, we won't have time to go through those. But now, here are some of these drugs, things that we're buying. Mustard is a poison. Pepper, white pepper, black pepper, a poison. Not cayenne pepper. Spices. Spices are not herbs. There's a difference. Pickles, vinegars, salt, too much salt. I'm talking about ordinary table salt. It's interesting, isn't it? Mommy prepares the food. Family comes and sit down. They haven't even tasted the food, and everybody is adding. Everybody is adding. Chutneys, tomato sauce, Worcester sauce, tomato sauces. All tomato sauces contains vinegar, apple cider, call it what you like. It's a poison. What is interesting, Christ is hanging on the cross, and he says, I am thirsty. What do they give him? And what does he do? He turns his head. Amazing. Isn't that amazing?
So does that mean that you say pickles? Are you talking about
The vinegar added to make the pickles.
because it's fermented?
Yes.
So then are all fermented foods, which is said to be probiotic, is that
You need to invite me to come and talk to you because there's so much information to share. Wow, my friend, yes. Yes. Look at this here. Yeah. All these things, my friends, all these things. So the mom is a bit overweight. She goes on the trim mayonnaise, vinegar. Vinegar. All these things, spicy foods. Something else we also realize, mummies. Sure, I'm running out of time. What is interesting, if you're having little girls between the ages of 19 and 13, right, then they go to school. The government will send their clinic sisters to the school and make a little contact with the teachers and then give a little paper to the little girl, 12 years of age. Please let's take this to your mommy and daddy, please to sign this vaccination. Somebody says yes, it's taking place. Yes. Wow. Why vaccination? Because the little boys and the little girls, in this case, they are naughty and they have hormones floating through them and they want to be with the boys. And you know to what extent they want to be with the boys. Yes. Will you sign that letter? In America, they use the same approach, and hundreds of little girls died because of that Gardasil vaccination that the government releases. Gardasil. It's another presentation. Monosodium glutamate, MSG, yeast and soya, etc., etc. These things, It's in Chinese food, it's in chips and cookies and seasonings and yeast extracts, soya sauce, etc., etc. Friends, and these are some of the diseases, the problems, the reaction to it. Skin rashes, migraine headaches, of all the things that's been added. What are we suggesting is when you go shopping, look at the pack, look at the ingredients, and if there are E numbers after the ingredient list, don't buy it. Wow. Because it kills, it destroys, it destroys. The Western lifestyle is mommy's working, daddy's working, they're both coming home late, tired to cook and prepare the meals. So what do? Stop. Yeah, that's what happens. That's where they stop. And processed food is poisons. We know it. The research is very clear. There we are, all these things over here. The result of following this diet plan, the FDA definition, you wouldn't be using any of these. Wow. Sugar cravings. In the training that we do, women have a sweet tooth. It's true. So it's the housewife, it's mommy's birthday. And so daddy goes out, you want to bring something to mommy. And what does he normally buy? Oh dear, friends. Sugar cravings and artificial sweeteners. All these things contain poisons. You're opening this can of Coca-Cola and it goes, tsh. What is that? Tsh? Do you know what it is? Here I am. I'm busy. I'm inhaling good oxygen. I'm exhaling carbon dioxide. So when you open that can and it goes, tsh, it's carbon dioxide. Your body gets rid of it and I drink it back. Come on. Yes, sparkling water. These things, here we are. There are 146 reasons why sugar is bad for us. Come on, my friends. There it is. Acidic foods. Wow, this is another one. You see, I need more time, my sister, to share this information. And this is an information on its own, acidic foods. 80% of us have acidic bodies.
Yes.
80%. Now, here is number 5, alkalize or die. Now, here is the friend in the 1930s, Dr. Otto Warburg, a brilliant scientist with Jewish descent. He is to be exterminated, basically, by the Nazis in Germany. And Adolf Hitler hears about the brilliancy of this man, top researcher. So they pull him in, and he says, we think that Adolf Hitler's mother had breast cancer, and they ask him to find out what causes breast cancer. And he did the research. And he was awarded the Nobel Prize winner as well for cancer discovery. Do you know what causes breast cancer? One of the causes. That's an acidic body. So what makes your body acidic? We show you quickly. So here it is. No disease, friends, no disease, including cancer, can exist in an alkaline environment. No disease. So if I'm eating foods that makes my body acidic, problem. Sure. Let's quickly go through this. 90% of the population suffer from acidic bodies. And this is the history. Illness and disease are directly linked to over-acidity in the system. Research has done, proven it overwhelmingly. So this is a scale. Good water has a pH of 7.0. Good water. Anything to the right makes it alkaline, and anything to the left makes it acidic. Our blood pH is 7.365, and anything that you add that makes it more acidic, problem. So what makes it more acidic? Yo, I need more mind, I need more time. And here we are. So what is interesting, like in a nutshell, foods that are alkaline are the plant-based foods, all alkaline, veggies. And our body is designed in such a way that our body should be 20% acidic and 80% alkaline. So I need acidic foods as well. So I need acidic foods, and the acidic foods comes from the berries. Cranberries, strawberries, raspberries are mildly acidic, and we need them to give us this balance. And here are the other things: eggs, yolk, rice, whiskey, chicken, salmon, etc. are all acidic foods. Choice is ours. Let's quickly finish this. And so in this exercise, in the presentation, we will not have time to go through the foods that are acidic and foods that are alkaline. But if it's highly acidic, problem. On the alkaline side, that's fine. So here we go quickly. So these fruits, the fruits are basically mildly acidic, and we need them. That's what God gave us. All right. And here are the other fruits. Avocado is alkaline. Apricots, these are the mildly acidic fruits. We need them, purely. And here are the grains, friends. A bit of shocking news. Now, I'm careful I'm going to say this. You buy bread, white bread, whole wheat bread, other types of loaves of bread, and they're all acidic. Oh. Whole grain bread, look at this. The yellowish color is acidic. Look at this here. Sourdough bread is acidic in nature. Now, the way to minimize the impact of that level of acidity on the body is the following. So when I'm not sure how many of us are still baking bread, mummies, when you're back home. And when you're baking bread, keep it in the oven just a little longer so that the bread, that the yeast that you use is destroyed, the yeast cells. You kill them off. Or if you're going to buy these little breads over here, put it in the toaster. Just let it not go brown. Just a little bit. That you can kill some of the live yeast cells. Yeast is a fungus, and fungus causes a problem. All right. Sourdough, my sister, is not the good food to take. Yeah. Should stay away from it. Yes. All right, so which fats should we be using? Olive, canola, flaxseed for baking and cooking. Do not use the vegetable oils. Now, I'm just going to give you a quick overview. And if you check, if you're going to buy the oil, check on the label under ingredients. Where there's somewhere it says trans fats, that is a killer. Should never use an oil that's got trans fats in it. Just keep that in mind. All right, so let's quickly go on. And here are the vegetables. Most of the veggies are, in fact, all of them are alkaline. That's why we need whole-based plant foods. Beverages, beer, wine, coffees, all these things are acidic in nature. Wow. Look at this. Avoid all meats, poultry, and fish. They're all acidic in nature. And our body acidity goes up, problem. That is serious. Condiments are all acidic in nature. All of them. Whichever one you use. So, I haven't got I want to just quickly show you something. I think over here. For you to check your body acidity, You can buy this. It's called ocean milk. You can buy it at the pharmacy. And you wake up in the morning and you take the little litmus paper like this. All right. As you get up in the morning, it's just to test your body acidity level. Before you drink water, before you eat anything, you've got to test your body acidity. And what you do is scoot up. Do that. Now, I've got some prints over here. Prints, so you can see there's a scale over here. Right? And you can measure it in scale. Is my body a 7.5? 7.7. So it's alkaline. So my body is alkaline. So it's called, this one is called the Ocean Book. You ask him for the Ocean Book saliva test. The saliva test. For my friend. So you see what I did? I do exactly the same. So 6.5, 6 is 6. It's mildly acidic. The thing is, when you eat fruits, what happens? So, I would strongly recommend it. It's called the pH balance, pH testing tape. That's what it's called in some cases. There it is. So let's quickly just finish this over here. That's one nice way of testing it. Lack of water intake. We need 30 milliliters of water per kilogram body weight per day. So if you weigh 70 kilograms, you multiply the 70 times that is 2,100. That is about 8 glasses of water per day. Hello? Yeah. And you're drinking the water not with glasses on your table, mealtime. There should be no cups and no glasses on your table when you eat. You're going to eat, not drink. And you take water in between meals. I need more time to share all these things with you. Fresh air. We really spoke about fresh air. Early morning exercise. My wife and myself, 40 minutes, 4 o'clock, summertime, sometimes 3:30. We're out. We're out exercising, my friend. Talk about? Kidney failure. It's going to come, my brother. You've got to be patient. You've got to be patient. Fresh air. Fresh air. That's where you get your fresh air in the morning. And the fresh air is negatively charged, the oxygen, early morning. Do you know what? You inhale the negatively charged oxygen. And if you happen to have some bacteria or fungi or microorganisms floating around here, the bad ones, it will kill it. That is your antibiotic. God's antibiotic is fresh air. All right. All right. There we are. Morning exercises. It works. I feel good. It works for us. And then sunlight. If you are a little darker skin, 20 to 30 minutes on the bare skin per day. And of course, for the fairer skin people, 5 to 10 minutes per day. I'm going to finish. No smoking, no alcohol. It stands to reason. That's it. And I'm finishing. Rest. There's rest and sleep. Sleep is the 7.5 hours at night. Rest, there are 4 types of rest. Daily rest. Then the other one is your 1 day a week rest. We just serve God. You need that. We need that. And the other one, of course, is recreational rest. Do you ever get time to, yeah? I was just driving through Cape areas the last two days. You got a beautiful place here. All the parks and the seas. Spend time there. Just sit there and rest, meditate. And of course, number 4, rest, is see what God tells us. Yeah, he's given us a lot of information. Now, I'm closing with a slide before we have lunch, I think. Most of our problems are because we act without thinking. And it finishes by saying this: we keep thinking without acting. Wow. We've given you a lot of information this morning. Wow. The question now is, are you going to keep thinking about it? Or are you going to start acting?
Thank you, Dr. Partington. That was very interesting. Did you all learn something? Yes. A lot of information. And are you going to try and carry it out? Yes. Even little by little steps. And Dr. Partington, do you want to start on the time?
When you're ready.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We were a little bit delayed, so we're looking at about 1:30. If you can come back into the church again. We've got some complimentary soup, a little bit of complimentary soup and sandwich, and then there's a market out there with lentil burgers and different plant-based things for sale as well. And Be Free have a shop in Somerset West, but they do online orders, and they have a display of all the products, that the healthy grains and seeds and nuts at very good prices. And they also do online orders as well. So feel free to browse through all the markets that we've got there. There's some honey and some seed bars and some burgers, as I said. So please, and you can enjoy the fresh air. We put chairs outside, so you can sit outside and get some fresh air and sunshine and enjoy the fellowship together. Thank you.